Greetings. This is Brother Eli. Welcome to Bible Truth Revealed. This channel is dedicated to exposing the lies of Christianity and revealing biblical truth. On this channel, we worship and serve the Most High God of Israel only. This teaching is entitled The Hidden Truth about the Second Commandment. That is, the hidden truth about the Second Commandment. Most people believe that the Second Commandment only prohibits the children of Israel from making images for the purpose of bowing down and serving them, and that provided we do not bow down and serve them, we are free to make whatever image we desire. In this teaching, we will closely examine the Second Commandment so I can demonstrate that it goes much deeper than what we have been led to believe. In doing so, I will answer the following questions. 1. What is an idol? 2. What is idolatry? 3. Do pictures of Jesus violate the Second Commandment? And 4. How can we avoid breaking the Second Commandment? I will be reading from the Brenton Septuagint translation. Exodus chapter 20, verses 4 to 6. Exodus chapter 20, verses 4 to 6 reads thus: Thou shalt not make to thyself an idol, nor likeness of anything, whatever things are in the heaven above, and whatever are in the earth beneath, and whatever are in the waters under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down to them, nor serve them. For I am the Most High, a jealous God, recompensing the sins of the fathers upon the children, to the third and fourth generation, to them that hate me, and bestowing mercy on them that love me, to thousands of them, and on them that keep my commandments. Many well-meaning people claim that verse 4 cannot be properly understood on its own. For example, they insist that the reason for not making idols is given in verse 5, where it says, Thou shalt not bow down to them, nor serve them. This is how they conclude that we are only prohibited to make idols for the purpose of bowing down and serving them. If this were true, it would mean that we could make idols if we do not bow down to them and serve them. Consider this. The 10 Commandments were given to the children of Israel before we entered the land of Canaan. The Canaanites were well known for their idolatry. If the Second Commandment was saying that we are allowed to make idols, provided we do not worship them, it would mean that our forefathers could have established very profitable businesses making idols for the Canaanites. After all, according to the prevailing understanding of the Second Commandment, it only becomes a sin if we bow down to them and worship them. The Ellicott's Commentary for English Readers says this about the Second Commandment. It was not until the days of Hebrew decline and degeneracy that a narrow literalism pressed the words into an absolute prohibition of the arts of painting and sculpture. What does this mean? According to the Merriam-Webster Dictionary, a few synonyms for the word literalism are authenticity, truth, genuineness, fact, and reality. This is saying that only when we focus on the authenticity, truth, genuineness, fact, and reality of the Second Commandment do we arrive at the conclusion that it is an absolute prohibition of the arts of painting and sculpture. In other words, to arrive at the conclusion that the Second Commandment only prohibits the making of idols for the purpose of bowing down and serving them, we must not take it literally. I choose to take the 10 Commandments literally and let the chips fall where they may. For example, when I read, "Thou shalt not commit adultery," I take it very literally. The same applies when I read, "Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy," or any other of the 10 Commandments. I choose to take them all literally and to focus on the authenticity, truth, genuineness, fact, and reality of all of them. Therefore, in this teaching, I will reveal the literal meaning of the Second Commandment. I stated earlier that most people believe that the reason for not making idols is given in verse 5, where it says, "Thou shalt not bow down to them nor serve them." Now, I will demonstrate that this is not the real reason for this prohibition. The Second Commandment includes 3 clear prohibitions. 1. Thou shalt not make to thyself an idol. 2. Thou shalt not make a likeness of anything, whatever things are in the heaven above, and whatever, that means anything at all, are in the earth beneath, and whatever are in the waters under the earth. And 3, thou shalt not bow down to them nor serve them. These are the 3 prohibitions in the Second Commandment. The rest of the commandment tells us the reason for these 3 prohibitions. It begins with the word "for." The word "for" means because. The real reason is as follows: "For I am the Most High, a jealous God." In other words, because I am the Most High, a jealous God, the natural response to the question why begins with the word because. Therefore, if we ask the question, why are Israelites prohibited to make idols or images of things in heaven, on the earth, and in the waters, or to bow down to and serve these things? The answer to the question is for or because the Most High is a jealous God who recompenses the sins of the fathers upon the children, to the 3rd and 4th generation, to them that hate him, and bestows mercy on them that love him, to thousands of them, and on them that keep his commandments. To be perfectly clear, when the Second Commandment says not to make idols, this is literally what it means. When it says not to make a likeness of anything whatsoever in heaven, on the earth, or in the waters, this is literally what it means. And when it says not to bow down to or serve any of these things, this is literally what it means. Because this makes many people uncomfortable, does not change the fact that this is a literal meaning of the Second Commandment. Now let's get to the questions. Question 1. What is an idol? The Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines the word idol as 1. An object of extreme devotion, and 2. A representation or symbol of an object of worship. This means that anyone or anything other than the Most High which receives extreme devotion is an idol. Additionally, any visual representation or symbol of that person, animal, or thing is also an idol. For example, cows are an object of extreme devotion in India. This means that cows are idols in that country. Furthermore, if someone who worships a cow makes a visual representation or symbol of the cow, that visual representation or symbol is also an idol. Therefore, both the cow and the visual representation or symbol of the cow are idols. Idols are used in most world religions, but in this teaching, I will focus on Hinduism and Christianity. This is because Christians can easily identify that Hindus are idolaters, and Hindus can easily see that Christians are idolaters, but each of these groups is blind to its own idolatry. Just like Hindus worship the cow with extreme devotion, Christians worship Jesus with extreme devotion. Therefore, both the cow and Jesus are idols. They are worshipped instead of the Most High. And just like Hindus create representations or symbols of the cow, Christians create representations or symbols of Jesus. Representations or symbols of Jesus are idols because Christians worship the person that these images represent. A few examples of representations or symbols of Jesus, the Christian God, are as follows. 1. The cross, which Christians believe their God died on. By the way, if you serve a God that died, you should be ashamed of yourself. The Most High, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, is eternal. He can never die. Yet foolish Israelites choose to reject the Most High and serve the false god and idol of our Christian slave masters. Number 2, the crucifix. This is a cross with an image of the dead Christian God hanging on it like a little punk. Number 3, the fish symbol. Early Christians stole this symbol from the worshippers of Dagon, the fish god. 4. Statues of the Christian God, such as Christ the Redeemer statue in Brazil. And 5. The nativity scene, which depicts the Christian God shortly after he had traveled through a woman's birth canal. If your God needs to travel through a woman's birth canal to come to earth in the form of a man, he is not worth worshipping. In Genesis chapter 18, the Most High visited Abraham in the form of a man without having to impregnate a woman espoused to another man, which, by the way, is adultery, and without having to travel through the woman's birth canal. All these representations or symbols of Jesus, the Christian God, are idols. And the Most High commanded us not to make idols. Let us consider an example of when our wicked forefathers made an idol It made the Most High so angry that he destroyed them. Exodus chapter 32, verses 1 to 4 and verse 35. That's Exodus chapter 32, verses 1 to 4 and verse 35. And it reads thus. And when the people saw that Moses delayed to come down from the mountain, the people combined against Aaron and said to him, Arise and make us gods who shall go before us. For this Moses, the man who brought us forth out of the land of Egypt, we do not know what is become of him. And Aaron says to them, Take off the golden earrings which are in the ears of your wives and daughters, and bring them to me. And all the people took off the golden earrings that were in their ears, and brought them to Aaron. And he received them at their hands, and formed them with a graving tool. And he made them a molten calf, and said, These are thy gods, O Israel, which have brought thee up out of the land of Egypt. The first prohibition in the Second Commandment states, Thou shalt not make to thyself an idol. This means that even before our rebellious fathers had bowed down to and served this image, they had violated the Second Commandment just by making the idol. This is proven by verse 35, which says, And the Most High smote, that means destroyed, the people for the making of the calf which Aaron made. The Most High destroyed the people for making this idol. When we make idols, the Most High destroys us because he is a jealous God. This is the reason he told us not to make idols. And this is exactly what we read in the Second Commandment. Let this be a warning to those who refuse to take the Second Commandment literally. Question number 2. What is idolatry? The Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines the word idolatry as the worship of an idol as a god. We are born into a world so full of idolatry that most people are desensitized to it and struggle to truly understand what it is. So let me give a very modern example of idolatry. There is a talent show called American Idol. The clue is in the name. This show documents the making of living idols. Singers can go from complete obscurity, where no one except their closest family and friends know about their talent, to stardom, where they are literally worshipped by die-hard fans, who are called fanatics. They become objects of extreme devotion. In other words, they become idols, and the fanatics are guilty of idolatry. According to the Christian fable, the fictional Jesus character has become an object of extreme devotion. In other words, he has become an idol, and Christians are guilty of idolatry. It should be clear by now that both Hindus and Christians are guilty of idolatry. But the fascinating truth is that if you ask any Hindu if he is guilty of idolatry, he will insist that he is not. I have tried this with a few Hindus, and it is amazing to witness the verbal gymnastics they apply to convince themselves that they are not guilty of idolatry. The same is true of Christians. Just like Hindus, they know what idolatry is, but they would never admit that they are guilty of this sin. To make sure there is no confusion, about the definition of idolatry, let me reiterate what idolatry is. If I make an image of anything, this can be a person, an animal, or a thing, that I take as a god alongside of or in place of the Most High, and I look to that person, animal, or thing as the one I depend on, that is idolatry. Christians consider Jesus to be a god. Some of them worship him alongside the Most High. Others worship him in place of the Most High, and they even insist that we cannot get to the Most High without going through Jesus. Additionally, Christians all depend on Jesus more than they depend on the Most High. This is idolatry. As clear as this explanation is, most Christians will refuse to accept it. So let's hear it again from one of the most prolific idolaters on the internet. If anyone understands what idolatry is, it is this person, because he practices idolatry every single day. Listen closely.
What is idolatry? Let me repeat what idolatry is. When I make an image of anything in heaven, on earth, or in the sea, that I take as a god or a goddess, I'm saying this is a god, this is a goddess, alongside of or in place of Yahweh, and I'm looking to that one as my god or goddess that I depend on, that's idolatry.
Just like the Hindus, this Christian would never admit that he is an idolater. And for you rebellious Christianites, idolizing the black-faced Jesus is no better than idolizing the one that looks like our Christian slave masters. Question number 3. Do pictures of Jesus violate the Second Commandment? We now have a better understanding of idolatry, and we know that Israelites are forbidden to make idols. Nevertheless, some Christians and Christianites are so rebellious that they make pathetic excuses, such as the following, and I quote, "An idol is a graven image, which is a three-dimensional object. This does not include two-dimensional objects such as paintings. Therefore, if I make a portrait of Jesus or Yahushua, I am not guilty of idolatry." End of quote. Let's go back to Exodus chapter 20 verse 4 so I can demonstrate that portraits of Jesus or Yahushua do indeed violate the Second Commandment. It reads, "Nor likeness of anything, whatever things are in the heaven above, and whatever are in the earth beneath, and whatever are in the waters under the earth." In the Merriam-Webster dictionary, two synonyms of likeness are copy and portray. So the verse is saying that we must not make copies or portraits of anything in heaven, on the earth, or in the waters. This means that making portraits or pictures or paintings of Jesus, the Christian God, is indeed a violation of the Second Commandment. Israelites are prohibited from making the likeness of anything in heaven, on the earth, or in the waters. From a modern perspective, this might seem a bit extreme because images are everywhere in the lands of our captivity. We are so bombarded by images of things in the heaven, on the earth, and in the waters that most people cannot imagine living without these images. However, the practice of making images of the things in heaven, on the earth, and in the waters comes directly from the heathen. The heathen cannot survive without their images because this is a crucial element in the worship of their false gods. During the time of the Maccabees, the heathen even tried to paint their images in the book of the law. We can find this in 1 Maccabees chapter 3, verses 45 to 48. 1 Maccabees chapter 3, verses 45 to 48 says, Now Jerusalem was laid void as a wilderness. There was none of her children that went in or out. This is because the heathen had destroyed us. The sanctuary also was trodden down, and aliens, that's the heathen, the foreigners, the other nations, kept the stronghold. The heathen had their habitation in that place. They took our place, and joy was taken from Jacob, that's the Israelites, and the pipe with their harp ceased. We were mourning. Wherefore the Israelites assembled themselves together and came to Maspah over against Jerusalem. For in Maspah was the place where they prayed aforetime in Israel. Then they fasted that day and put on sackcloth and cast ashes upon their heads and rent their clothes and laid open the book of the law. So we opened the book of the law, wherein the heathen had sought to paint the likeness of their images. Again, we laid open the book of the law, wherein the heathen had sought to paint the likeness of their images. The word sought means tried. The heathen had tried to paint the likeness of their images in the book of the law, but they did not succeed. Had they succeeded, this verse would say the heathen painted the likeness of the images, not that they sought or tried to do so. Let's think about this for a moment. The Most High commanded his holy people not to make a likeness of anything that he had made. The book of the law was kept by the Levites. They could have easily painted images of Moses, Aaron, King David, or any other great leader in Israel. Yet, it never occurred to them to paint images in the book of the law because they understood that this would displease the Most High. On the other hand, as the painting of images is vital to the heathen, as soon as they took over our land, they tried to paint their images in the book of the law. This shows their absolute contempt for the book of the law in general and the Second Commandment in particular. Portraits are also very important in cultures where ancestor worship is practiced. Portraits of deceased persons are kept on display and incense is burned to them. People even pray to these portraits, asking for guidance, protection, and so forth. This is idolatry. Even in places where people claim that they do not worship their ancestors, there are portraits of deceased family members on display. These portraits are often cherished, spoken to, and remembered in a way that, if we are honest, we would have to admit is a mild form of idolatry. Many Israelites today who think they are simply remembering their deceased loved ones by cherishing and kissing their photos and by speaking to them as though they were present are in fact guilty of idolatry. The time has come to repent. The very worst idolaters kiss photos of people who never even existed and then they try to justify their idolatry by saying that it is no different to kissing a photo of our dead family members. We should not be kissing photos of our dead family members in the first place, though this is pure folly. This is further evidence that idolaters will always find excuses to justify their idolatry. Listen to this madness.
It is no more idolatrous for you to have an image of the Holy Mother that you kiss, showing your love for her as a creature created by Jesus, owned by Jesus, then you take a picture of your dead mother and kiss it.
While the heathen boast of their idols and kiss statues of their idols and photos of their idols, Israelites must refrain from doing so. The Most High, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, who is the creator of all things, is the only one we must worship. Psalm chapter 96 verse 7 in the Brenton Septuagint translation is chapter 97 verse 7 in the KJV. I will read Psalm 96 verse 7 so we can hear what the scriptures have to say about people who boast of their idols. It says, "Let all that worship graven images be ashamed who boast of their idols." Again, let all that worship graven images like statues of Mary and Jesus be ashamed who boast of their idols. Worship him, all ye his angels. Question number 4. How can we avoid breaking the second commandment? First of all, we can stop making images of our deceased ancestors. Ancestor worship began when people started making graven images and or portraits of their deceased ancestors. We can find an example of this in Wisdom of Solomon chapter 14 verse 15. That's Wisdom of Solomon chapter 14 verse 15, and it says, "For a father afflicted with untimely mourning, when he hath made an image of his son, soon taken away." That means the child died young. He died too soon. "Now honored him as a god, which was then a dead man, and delivered to those that were under him ceremonies and sacrifices." So this father was afflicted with mourning. It was untimely because his child died before him. His child died too soon, and he made an image of his child to remember his child. But now, which means after that, even though it was not his intention, he ended up honoring his son as a god. This is a violation of all three prohibitions in the second commandment. First, he made an image of his son. He was not supposed to do that. Then the image became an idol to him, and it could never have become an idol had he not made it in the first place. And finally, he honored his son as a god. He bowed down to and served the image of his son. Israelites must not do anything that could be perceived as idolizing our deceased loved ones or anyone else. To learn more about the dangers of venerating our deceased ancestors, please listen to my teaching entitled, "Can Our Ancestors Help Us?" That is, can our ancestors help us? The question is often asked, if the second commandment really means that we must not make images of the Most High's creation, then why did the Most High command Moses to make a serpent of brass in Numbers chapter 21. In Numbers chapter 21, the people were murmuring against the Most High and Moses, so the Most High sent serpents to bite them. Now let's read what happened next. Numbers chapter 21, verses 8 and 9. This is Numbers chapter 21, verses 8 and 9. And Moses prayed to the Most High for the people. And the Most High said to Moses, Make thee a serpent, and put it on a signal staff, and it shall come to pass that whenever a serpent shall bite a man, everyone so bitten that looks upon it shall live. And Moses made a serpent of brass, and put it upon a signal staff, and it came to pass that whenever a serpent bit a man, and he looked on the brazen serpent, he lived. So here we see that the Most High explicitly commanded Moses to make the serpent of brass. Now let's take an even closer look at Exodus chapter 20 verse 4 so I can explain why this is not a violation of the second commandment. Exodus chapter 20 verse 4, again it says, Thou shalt not make to thyself an idol. Again, thou shalt not make to thyself. This is a key word, an idol, nor likeness of anything, whatever things are in the heaven above, and whatever are in the earth beneath, and whatever are in the waters under the earth. The word thyself tells us that we are not allowed to make these images to or for ourselves. The Most High is the only one who can give us permission to make images of His creation. If we do so of our own accord, meaning without His explicit consent, He will be displeased with us. He explicitly commanded Moses to make the serpent of brass. Moses did not make the serpent of his own accord. This is why it was not a violation of the second commandment. In the same way, the Most High commanded the making of the images in the temple, on the Ark of the Covenant, and so forth. So these were not violations of the second commandment. However, whenever the children of Israel made an image to themselves or for themselves, it was a violation of the second commandment. We can find evidence of this in Exodus chapter 32, verses 7 to 10. Exodus chapter 32, verses 7 to 10 reads thus. And the Most High spoke to Moses, saying, Go quickly, descend hence, for thy people whom thou broughtest out of the land of Egypt have transgressed, they have sinned. They have quickly gone out of the way which thou commandest. They have made for themselves a calf, and worshipped it, and sacrificed to it, and said, These are thy gods, O Israel, who brought thee up out of the land of Egypt. And now let me alone, and I will be very angry with them, and consume them, and I will make thee a great nation. When our forefathers thought that Moses would not return, they made an image of a calf for themselves. This was their first mistake. They made the image of one of the Most High's creations without Him authorizing them to do so. If the Most High had commanded them or given them permission to make the golden calf, this would not have been a violation of the first prohibition in the second commandment. Provided they did not bow down and serve the golden calf, and it was made with the Most High's permission, it would not have been a violation of the second commandment. In the case of Moses and the brass serpent, it only became a violation of the second commandment when the people decided to worship it, We can find this in 4 Kings chapter 18, verses 1 to 6. 4 Kings chapter 18 in the Septuagint is 2 Kings chapter 18. I will be reading verses 1 to 6. It says, "And it came to pass in the 3rd year of Osee, son of Elah, king of Israel, that Ezekiah, son of Achaz, king of Judah, began to reign. 25 years old was he when he began to reign, and he reigned 29 years in Jerusalem, and his mother's name was Abu, daughter of Zacharias, and he did that which was right in the sight of the Most High, according to all that his father David did." Now we're going to learn what this king did. He removed the high places and broke in pieces the pillars and utterly destroyed the groves and the brazen serpent which Moses made. He destroyed the brazen serpent which Moses made. Why? Because until those days the children of Israel burnt incense to it. The children of Israel burnt incense to the serpent of brass. This is a violation of the second commandment. Moses making the serpent was not a violation of the second commandment because he received explicit instruction and permission from the Most High to do so. It continues, "And he called it Nethan. He trusted in the Most High God of Israel, and after him there was not any like him among the kings of Judah, nor among those that were before him. And he clave to the Most High, he departed not from following him, and he kept his commandments, as many as he commanded Moses." This scenario highlights a violation of the third prohibition in the second commandment, the one that says we must not serve these images. This also proves that even if we do not make images ourselves, we can still end up worshipping them. The question might be asked, what if we don't make the image ourselves? Is it okay to buy it? We can find the answer to this question in the book of Judges. Judges chapter 17, verses 1 to 4. Judges chapter 17, verses 1 to 4 reads thus. "And there was a man of Mount Ephraim, and his name was Micaiah. And he said to his mother, The 1100 pieces of silver which thou tookest to thyself, and about which thou cursest me, and spokest in my ears, behold, the silver is with me. I took it." So he had stolen this money from his mother, and she had cursed him for it. And his mother said, "Blessed be my son of the Most High." Why? Because he's admitted to her that he was the one that took the money. She's happy that he's being honest, and he can return the money. Verse 3, "And he restored the 1100 pieces of silver to his mother. And his mother said, I had wholly consecrated the money to the Most High out of my hand for my son, to make a graven and a molten image, and now I will restore it to thee." So this woman had consecrated or dedicated this money to the Most High, and she wanted to make a graven or molten image for the Most High. Verse 4, "But he returned the silver to his mother, and his mother took 200 pieces of silver and gave them to a silversmith, and he made it a graven and a molten image, and it was in the house of Micaiah." Here we see a woman who decided to buy an image which she claims was for the Most High, even though he never asked her to do so. She did not make it herself, and there is no mention of her bowing down to it or serving it. Yet, the very next chapter explains how other people ended up serving it. This is Judges chapter 18, verses 30 to 31. Judges chapter 18, verses 30 to 31 says this. "And the children of Dan set up the graven image for themselves, for themselves. The children of Dan set up the graven image for themselves. And Jonathan, son of Gerson, son of Manasseh, he and his sons were priests to the tribe of Dan till the time of the carrying away of the nation. They got carried away into captivity because of their idolatry. And they set up for themselves, the graven image which Micaiah made. This image was not made for them. This image was made, according to Micaiah's mother, for the Most High. And she didn't make it herself. She bought it. But then these people ended up setting it up for themselves, serving it, worshipping it. All the days that the house of the Most High was in Salem, and it was so in those days that there was no king in Israel. So the answer to the question is no. Even if we do not make these images, we should do our best not to purchase them either, because although we might not intend to worship them, they may become an idol for someone else. Think about the images in your home that you cannot imagine getting rid of. There's a good chance that those images are your idols. You are so emotionally attached to them that even if the Most High Himself told you to get rid of them, you would struggle to do so. The sad fact is that many people would prefer to keep their images, even if there is a chance that it displeases the Most High. I encourage us all to take this matter to the Most High in prayer so He can reveal to us which images in our homes have the potential for destruction. For many people, this will be pornography. There are people that are hooked on these images of naked people doing disgusting things. For others, a certain addictive video game that you just can't live without, or a social media platform that you find yourself checking every minute. It might be something different for each of us, but if we truly love the Most High, we will search our hearts and our homes to make sure that none of the images around us is an idol or has the potential to become a stumbling block for someone else. Idolatry is a serious problem, and the Most High gave us very clear instructions so we can avoid breaking the Second Commandment. Most people can accept that we are not to make idols and that we are not to bow down to them or serve them, but they struggle to accept the fact that Israelites are forbidden to make a likeness or image of anything in heaven, on the earth, or in the waters. However, this is only hard to accept because we are bombarded by images in the lands of our captivity. And this is because we are living among the heathen, and the heathen cannot live without their images. It is often hard to notice idolatry in modern society because we have become desensitized to it. Our idolatrous slave masters bombard us with images in the form of statues, sculptures, billboards, posters, photographs, and much more. Apart from this, all over the world, people keep photos and posters of their favorite celebrities, sports teams, superheroes, bodybuilders, singers, and beauty queens. These are their idols. They are images of the Most High's creations in books and magazines, on television, on the internet, in shopping malls, museums, churches, and the list goes on. It's even a challenge to buy food or clothing without having to see images plastered all over them. Finally, it has become a common thing for people to make themselves idols by posting dozens of selfies on their Instagram or other social media accounts for their followers to idolize them. All of this makes it practically impossible to avoid these images. Although we are in the land of our captivity, where we require images for official documents, education and employment purposes, communicating with friends and families abroad, and so much more, we can still keep the Second Commandment to the best of our ability. In plain English, the Second Commandment prohibits us from 1. Making idols, 2. Making images of the Most High's creation, and 3. Bowing down to or serving false gods. We should have no gods beside the Most High. For the creative types among us, the question can be asked, if we cannot make images of the Most High's creation, how can we express our creativity? The answer is, if we are truly so creative, we should have no problem coming up with ideas that are not copies of the Most High's creation. Anybody can copy what they see, but it is those who are truly creative who will find ways to express themselves without violating the Second Commandment. If you have found this teaching beneficial and you wish to learn more about the subject of idolatry, please listen to my teaching entitled Israelites in Idolatry. That is, Israelites in Idolatry. In conclusion, the Second Commandment prohibits Israelites from making idols and images of anything in heaven, on the earth, and in the waters. It also warns us not to bow down to them or serve them, because the Most High is a jealous God and He will severely punish us if we do so. On the contrary, idols and images are a vital part of heathen societies. This is why we are bombarded with images in the lands of our captivity. It is practically impossible to avoid them, but we must refuse to make them, bow down to them, or serve them. And with that, I say, Salam.
If God was against images, why did He have Jesus become flesh in order to become the physical image of the invisible God?